Our story takes place in the past century, a time quite different from the one we live in today. The small town in the countryside buzzed with rumours about the mysterious visitor who had recently arrived. The cobblestone streets and colonial architecture houses took on an unusual air of excitement as the residents exchanged theories about the stranger's identity. Some swore he was a wealthy farmer, while others bet he was a prince from distant lands. The truth, however, was quite different from what anyone could imagine. The man in question was Dylan, now a successful and charming 31-year-old entrepreneur. Dressed in an impeccable suit and exuding confidence, nothing about him resembled the frail and frightened boy who left that same town 25 years ago, after the tragic death of his mother. Dylan observed the familiar streets with a mixture of nostalgia and bitterness, recalling the tough times he had lived there. 25 years ago, Dylan and his mother lived on the property of the powerful farmer Morgan. His mother worked as a cook in the main house, while little Dylan, then just 6 years old, used to sneak into the kitchen seeking treats. "Boy, get out of here now," his mother would say, placing some cookies in his hand and gently pushing him out. "You know, if Mr. Morgan catches you here, we'll be in trouble." Mr. Morgan was known for his rigidity and coldness in dealing with employees. However, his wife Daisy was the opposite, a sweet and compassionate woman who treated everyone with respect and affection. Dylan clearly remembered Daisy's warm smile and how she always had a kind word for the farm workers. Life on the property proceeded normally until a mysterious disease began to spread throughout the region. It was something new and frightening, leaving local authorities and doctors unsure of how to react. On Morgan's farm, the situation quickly became critical. The farmer, fearing for the health of his family, ordered that any employee with symptoms be immediately isolated in the stables. "Morgan, you can't leave the employees in that situation," Dylan remembered hearing Daisy plead with her husband. "Let's reserve the farm's guest house for the employees with symptoms and hire nurses to take care of them while they recover." But Morgan was adamant. "Don't be silly, Daisy," he replied with disdain. "No one knows this disease. I'm not going to risk contaminating the guest house. They're just employees. If something happens, we can hire others." And so, against Daisy's wishes, the sick employees were housed in the old horse stables. Dylan vividly remembered the desolate scene, dozens of people lying on the cold ground on thin mats, moaning in pain and fever. Among them was his mother, who, even though she was sick, tried to protect her son. "Dylan, stay away from here," she said in a weak voice. "I don't want you to get sick too." But the boy couldn't abandon his mother and the other employees to their fate. Throughout the day, he would go to the well to fetch fresh water for the sick. He picked fruits in the farm's orchard and brought them hidden. He boiled water and prepared teas with herbs he found in the fields. Dylan remembered seeing Daisy watching his actions from a distance with a look of admiration and sadness. She wanted to help, but Morgan strictly forbade her from approaching the sick. The night everything changed was etched in Dylan's memory as if it were yesterday. The rain was pouring down torrentially, and he was outside the stable when he heard the faint whisper of his mother calling his name. He ran inside, passing through the other sick people who made way for him. "Dylan," his mother said in a faint voice, "I think it's time for us to say goodbye, my dear. Take care, my son. Study and be a good, honourable man. I love you." And then, before the boy's horrified eyes, she closed her eyes for the last time. "No, Mom! No!" Dylan shouted, leaning over the motionless body. Desperate, the boy ran to the big house, ignoring all prohibitions. He burst into the living room, where Mr. Morgan was quietly enjoying his wine. "You need to call a doctor," Dylan pleaded. "My mum and the other workers are dying." Morgan looked at the drenched boy with disdain. "Who let you in here, you brat? I would never spend my money on replaceable people like your mother. Now get out of my house, you're all wet and will stain the floor." On that fateful night, not only Dylan's mother but 2 other employees succumbed to the illness. The next day, under a light drizzle, Dylan's mother's body was buried in the small cemetery on the property. The boy, now completely alone in the world, returned to the workers' quarters and curled up on the bed he used to share with his mother. It was then that Days, Farmer Morgan's wife, entered the quarters. Even though she was pregnant, she sat on the bed and took little Dylan in her arms, comforting him as he cried himself to sleep. When he woke up, Days handed him an envelope with some money and a written address. "Dylan," she said tenderly, "there is no future for you here. Take this money and go to the station tomorrow. Take the train to the capital and look for this address. It's the farm of an aunt of mine, a very dear and charitable lady. Explain that I sent you and she will take you in. There you will have the chance of a better life." And so the next day, little Dylan left, leaving behind the only life he knew, carrying with him only painful memories and a hurt that would grow over the years. Now, 25 years later, Dylan was back. No one in town recognized him. The skinny boy had transformed into a tall and imposing man. His eyes, once innocent, now carried a determined gleam. He was there with a purpose, revenge. Rumors of his arrival quickly reached Mr. Morgan's ears. The once powerful farmer was now facing financial difficulties and saw in the mysterious visitor a potential lifeline for his business. Without hesitation, Morgan sent an invitation for Dylan to dine at his mansion. On the night of the dinner, Dylan entered the house he once knew so well, but now as a guest of honor. Morgan greeted him effusively, not suspecting that the elegant man before him was the same little boy who had begged for help so many years ago. Throughout the meal, Morgan tried hard to persuade Dylan to invest in his farm, painting a picture of lucrative opportunities. Dylan, however, remained purposefully uninterested, internally savoring Morgan's growing desperation. It was then that the farmer, in an unexpected move, made a surprising proposal. "Mr. Dylan, I understand your reluctance to do business with me, but as a token of my goodwill I would like to offer you the hand of my only daughter Beatrice in marriage. Thus, you will be assured of my good intentions." Dylan left the mansion that night, promising to soon give Morgan an answer. Intrigued by the proposal, the next day he decided to probe the innkeeper where he was staying to get more information about Beatrice. "Oh, young Beatrice," sighed the lady, lowering her voice as if sharing a secret. "She is the daughter of the late Days, who unfortunately died giving birth to the girl. Poor Beatrice, they say Morgan always blamed her for his wife's death. Nobody has seen her for years. Some say she is so ugly that her father keeps her hidden on the farm. Others comment that he makes her work like any other servant. But you know how it is, these are just rumors. No one knows for sure what goes on there." Dylan absorbed this information with interest. He had no plans to marry, but saw in Morgan's daughter a perfect opportunity to put his plan against the farmer into action. Never having seen Beatrice, he accepted the marriage proposal. A few days later, Morgan took Dylan to meet his future bride. They walked around the property, with Dylan recognizing every corner of that place which had once been his home. Finally, they reached an area where some workers were taking care of the horses. "Beatrice, come here!" Morgan called out with an authoritative voice. "I want to introduce you to someone." Among the workers, a young woman stood up. She was dirty and wore worn-out clothes, almost unrecognizable as the daughter of the farm owner. She approached with her head down. "Dylan, this is my daughter Beatrice, your future wife," Morgan announced. Dylan could barely make out the features of the young woman beneath the dirt. Noticing the look of disapproval on the suitor's face, Farmer Morgan hurried to say, "I know she doesn't seem like much, Mr. Dylan, but I promise she will be a good wife and give you strong children." Internally, Dylan smiled. "First I take his daughter, then the farm," he thought, determined to proceed with his plan. The wedding was scheduled for the following week, a simple ceremony on the farm itself, attended only by some of Morgan's business partners and the local pastor. Dylan was prepared to face whatever was necessary to carry out his plan. On the day of the ceremony, however, a surprise awaited everyone. When Beatrice entered, Dylan had to blink several times to make sure his eyes weren't deceiving him. The bride was simply stunning, wearing a simple yet elegant white dress. Her hair fell in soft waves over her shoulders, and her now clean face revealed a serene and captivating beauty. After the ceremony, when they were finally alone in the house that Morgan had reserved for the couple, Dylan surprised Beatrice by informing her that he would sleep in the room next door. He was a man of principles, as his mother had taught him to be, and he had no intention of forcing intimacy with someone he barely knew. In the days that followed, Dylan and Beatrice began to get to know each other better. Gradually, a pleasant routine was established between them. In the morning, they would have coffee together on the porch, enjoying the view of the farm. Dylan discovered that Beatrice had a vast knowledge of the property's management and frequently sought his opinion on work-related matters. In the afternoon, they often went for walks through the fields, talking about their lives. It was during one of these walks that Beatrice began to open up about her difficult relationship with her father, and about all the time she was never loved by him. "My father and I never got along," she confessed, her voice laden with sadness. "He always blamed me for my mother's death in childbirth. Over the years, he sought various opportunities to barter me into marriage, as if I were just a commodity." Dylan listened attentively, feeling a growing empathy for the young woman. Beatrice continued, "I realized that if I mingled with the staff, always dirty and disheveled, I could scare away the suitors my father arranged. It was the only way I found to protect myself." Intrigued, Beatrice then asked Dylan, "What made you agree to marry me, even seeing me in that state?" Dylan hesitated for a moment. "I have a reason," he finally replied, "but I can't reveal it now. Soon you will know." As the weeks went by, Dylan and Beatrice grew closer and closer. The conversations became deeper, the laughter more frequent. Dylan found himself admiring Beatrice's smile, so similar to Daisy's. Beatrice, in turn, was enchanted by Dylan's kindness and intelligence. Under the starry nights, they would sit on the porch and share stories about their lives. Dylan talked about his years in the capital, the challenges he faced, and how he managed to build his empire. Beatrice spoke of her dreams to one day travel and see the world beyond the farm's boundaries. In one of those moments of intimacy, their hands accidentally touched. Their eyes met, and in that instant, something changed. What had started as an alliance of convenience was transforming into something much deeper. It was on a sunny afternoon as they walked through the sunflower fields of the farm that Dylan realized he could no longer deny his feelings. He stopped, held Beatrice's hands and looked deeply into her eyes. "Beatrice," he began, his voice slightly trembling, "I need to tell you the truth about my past and why I came here." And so Dylan revealed his entire story, how he had lived on the farm as a child, his mother's death, and how Daisy, Beatrice's mother, had helped him escape. He talked about the years spent nurturing the desire to hold Morgan accountable for the harm he had caused, and how he had planned to use the marriage as part of his plan. "But something happened that I didn't expect," Dylan continued, his voice now soft. "I fell in love with you, Beatrice. I see in you the same kindness I once saw in your mother. It's as if somehow we had already met in the past, when Daisy comforted me that terrible night, with you still in her womb." Beatrice listened with teary eyes, her hands squeezing Dylan's. When he finished, she spoke with a choked voice. "Dylan, I fell in love with you too. You showed me that there is kindness and love in this world, something I had lost hope of finding." Dylan then made a proposal. "I no longer want to proceed with the plan against your father. For years I harbored this hatred, but the love I feel for you is capable of erasing all that bitterness. Let's leave this place, Beatrice. Let's start our life far from here." With tears in her eyes but a radiant smile on her lips, Beatrice replied, "With you, I'll go wherever it may be. I love you, Dylan." There, amidst the sunflower field, they sealed their love with a passionate kiss. The wind blew gently, making the flowers dance around the couple, as if nature itself were celebrating that moment of redemption and new beginning. That night, as they packed to leave, Dylan reflected on the journey that had brought him there. The frightened boy who had left that farm so many years ago had finally found peace and love. He understood that true revenge was not in destruction, but in the ability to overcome the past and build a better future. The next morning, Dylan and Beatrice left at sunrise, leaving behind not only the farm, but also the burdens of the past. Before them lay a new chapter, filled with possibilities and hope. Together, they had learned the most valuable of lessons. True love has the power to heal old wounds and transform even the most hurt heart. And so, hand in hand, Dylan and Beatrice walked towards the future, carrying with them the certainty that love is indeed capable of overcoming all hate. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 5 to show how much you liked it. Also, watch the video that is now appearing on your screen. See you soon.